Hi, I'm Sasha. Today I'm going to be doing 2 looks with the Huda Beauty Pastel Obsessions in Rose. I also have separate videos with 2 looks each from the Lilac Obsessions palette and the Mint Obsessions palette. I'll link these in the description below. Here are the swatches for the Pastel Obsessions in Rose. There are 5 matte shades, 3 shimmers, and 1 swirl. The shades are primarily rosy tones with a pop of orchid and yellow as well. The tones in the swirl are yellow and purple shades. To get started with the first look, I'm going to use some of this beautiful light pink shade. I'm just going to use that as a transition shade in the crease and on the eyelid as well. This is a beautiful soft pink shade. It still has a fair amount of pigmentation, but it gives a nice base layer for the whole look. Same thing on the other eye. Also going to take it up to the brow bone a bit as well. Now I'm going to dip into this light sort of pinkish mauve shade. I'm going to use that all over the eyelid. This is a beautiful soft pastel shade. Doesn't seem to be dramatically different from the light pink one, but just sort of gives a nice matte layer. Now I'm going to use this beautiful dusty rose shade. I'm going to take it on a diagonal angle here and work it up into the crease. This shade seems to have a lot of pink to it. It adds a lot of nice depth to this look. I'll do the same thing on the other side. It actually comes out brighter than I was expecting. I thought it would be more of a neutral or taupe shade, but it adds a nice brightness to the pink here. I'm going to take just a hint of that same shade on this fluffy brush and work it onto the general eyelid just to give us a little bit more color there. Now I'm going to take some of that same shade on a small little eyeshadow brush here. I'm going to use it under the lash line. Now I'm going to take it all the way across, just about halfway. Same thing on the other side. Just want to use a little bit to sort of tie that whole look together. Now I want to dip into some of these sparkle shades. I'm going to take my finger into this light pink sort of cotton candy shade. It seems to be a very creamy shade, so I'm going to make sure to get a lot of product on my finger, and then I'll sort of stamp that on the eye. This will just give a nice kind of pink sparkle to everything. Oh wow, that can come out really bold if you really stamp it in there. Gonna blend out those edges. I'm focusing on the center of the eyelid. I don't want to take it all the way to that inner corner. Now I'm going to take my pinky finger into this light, almost cream sparkle shade, and I'm just going to take a little of that on the inner corner there. It's almost like a silvery pink highlight. This is a really pretty contrast to the other pink sparkly shade we have there. Now I want to do something similar on the lower lash line. So first I'm going to take this little brush into the pink sparkle shade we have here. Just kind of stamp that near the center of the lower lash line. It seems to be a little bit hard to get enough product on the brush, so I'm trying to really press that in. Same thing on the other side. These glitters are a little bit more chunky than I like. I love them to be a little bit more shimmery, I guess, but they still work pretty well. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this kind of icy pink shimmer here. I'm going to kind of try to stamp it on the inner corner to give a finish to that nice highlight we have up top. Same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to use some of this Tarte Surfer Curl Mascara. Just going to wiggle it from root to tip. I don't want it to be super volumizing, just kind of a nice, soft, defined look. I try to make sure to get both sides of the lashes. I'm going to brush that out a tiny bit. Seem to get a little bit clumpy. Just using this lash comb here on the other side of this brow brush. Now I'm going to use this Honest Beauty mascara on the lower lash line. This one has a really nice long narrow brush that makes it a little bit easier to get to these tiny little lashes on the bottom here. Same thing on this side. Now I'm going to use some of this Gen Nude powder blush in the shade Pretty in Pink. This is a really nice sort of soft pink shade. I like it because it looks really natural, but you can also build it up to be more highly pigmented. For highlighter, I'm going to use some of this Wander Beauty Wondrous Glow in the shade After Hours. This one is a really nice, subtle illuminator. Has a bit of a golden tone to it. You could also go with something more icy for this look if you wanted. Now I'm going to use Miss Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer in Light Bronzer. This is a really nice, soft bronzing shade. I find that it's really easy to work with and kind of adds a nice subtle warmth. I like to add it along the hairline, down the sides of the nose, and in the jawline and down the neck. Now I'm going to use the Bite Beauty Power Move Creamy Matte Lip Crayon in the shade Sugarcane. This is a really beautiful soft pink matte shade. I like it because it has kind of a powdery pink feel and finish. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of this NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Creme Brulee. I just want to add a little bit of gloss to the center of the lips to give it a tiny bit of sheen. And that's it for look number 1. I'm going to go ahead and wash this off and I'll meet you back here for look number 2. If you'd like to skip ahead to the eyeshadow palette comparisons, I'll have links in the description below. If you're enjoying this video, please like or consider subscribing. I post new beauty videos every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, and I'd love to see you there. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be the first to watch my new videos. Alright, now I'm back and ready for look number 2. To get started, I'm going to use this light kind of pink shade. Just going to put it in the crease here and along the eyelid. Just want to give a nice base tone to everything. Same thing on the other eye. Now I'm going to lay down some of this sort of rosy tone here along the eyelid. Just kind of use this as a base wash of color. I'm going to focus it on the outer half of the eyelid here. Now I'm going to take this sort of orchid shade on this small eyeshadow brush. I'm going to take it in a diagonal direction and then up into the crease. This isn't quite as vibrant on the skin as I expected, but it can be built up nicely. It still seems to have a fair amount of pigmentation to it, just isn't quite as vibrant as like some of the ColourPop shades, for example. Now I'm going to use a bit of this Bare Minerals Primetime Eyelid Primer. I'm going to put a little bit on the back of my hand here. Then I'm going to use this small concealer brush and sort of paint it on to do a bit of a cut crease. I'm going to focus on this area near the inner corner of the eye. Seems to work a little bit better if I just use my finger as opposed to the brush. Now I'm going to take some of this beautiful bright yellow tone and just kind of stamp it on the area I just put that eye primer on. I want to make sure this comes out nice and bold. Same thing on the other eye. Now I want to do a similar look on the lower lash line. I'm going to take some of this rosy tone here and work it in from the outer corner to about halfway across. Same thing on the other side. Not all the way across, just about halfway. I'm going to put a little bit of that orchid shade here in the very corner. Just kind of blend it in to what we have above. Same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to take some of this beautiful yellow tone here and just work it in on the inner corner on both sides. I want to make sure it blends in with that rosy tone we have below. I want to take some of this beautiful marbled shade here. It kind of mixes the golden tones with the orchid. Just going to swirl a bit of that on my finger and then stamp it in near the center of the eye. The same thing on both sides. This is a beautiful tone that will kind of blend these two shades together. Now I'm going to take some of this beautiful shimmer yellow shade on my pinky finger and I'm going to work that into the inner corner as well. Same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to use that little brush to do the same thing on the lower lash line. So a little bit into this marbled shade here, work that near the center of the eye. This is a little bit harder to get with the brush, so you kind of have to stamp it. Same thing on the other side. And I'll swirl that in this light yellow shimmer. Press a little bit of that into the inner corner. Now I'm going to use some of this ColourPop BFF Creme Gel Liner in the shade Charmer. This is a beautiful sort of purple tone. I'm just going to take this on the inner rims of my eyes here. This one isn't super dark, it comes out a little bit more bright on me, especially in the inner waterline. Use a little bit in these inner corners as well. I'm going to work a little bit on this outer corner too. Now I'm just going to take an angled eyeliner brush and smoke this out a bit. So I'm just going to work it out so it softens and looks a little bit more natural. Make sure there are no harsh lines or edges. A little bit on this side as well. Now I'm going to use this Burt's Bees All Aflutter Mascara in the shade Black Brown. This one has a nice fluffy brush. I wanted to use something a little bit softer than a matte black with this look, so I could keep it a little bit lighter in general. I like the shape of this brush because it's really fluffy and nice for volumizing. Now some for the other eye. Now I'm just going to do a little bit along the lower lashes as well. I'm going to take the brush vertically and just kind of run it along these lower lashes. It's a little bit of fallout with this glitter, maybe some left over from before. I'm just going to touch up my blush and highlighter from before. This is the Wondrous Glow highlighter. This one is in the shade After Hours. Then for blush again, I have the Bare Minerals Gen Nude Powder Blush in the shade Pretty in Pink. For lipstick today, I'm using this Lawless lipstick in the shade Wedding Day. This is a really beautiful pinkish nude shade. I really like this with this look because I feel like it doesn't detract from the eyes but still gives a nice kind of defined look. Alright, so that's it for look number 2. Just as a quick summary, I thought this was a really fun palette to use. I felt like you can create a nice variety of looks because it has both rosy tones and also dips into a little bit of the orchid and yellow tones as well. I do think that these glitters are a little bit more on the chunky side. My personal preference is a little bit more towards the shimmers, so I found these a little bit difficult to work with, especially because the marble shade tended to be very creamy. It didn't really work very well on my brushes. It seemed to apply a lot better with my fingers. For $29, I think it's a relatively good value, especially because there's a range of tones. However, it doesn't go into a lot of the deeper tones, so it's primarily for lighter, more pastel looks. Now I'm just going to do a quick comparison between this eyeshadow palette and some others. This was a difficult palette to match, so I didn't feel like there was an exact match, at least in my collection. However, I did find the Milani Luster Light. This palette retails for $20 and has some very similar tones. It also has 6 more shades that go into a bit more of the deeper tones. You'll find some similarities, including the yellow and pink shades. I also like how the Milani shades are highly pigmented and they have a nice mix between mattes and shimmers. If you want to create some similar looks to what I did today, but you want a palette with a bit more range, it's probably worth checking out this Milani Luster Light palette. If you're less interested in shades like the yellow and orchid in this palette, I would also recommend looking at the Blush Crush palette from ColourPop. This one has some really beautiful pink tones in it and you can create a lot of nice soft pink looks. Blush Crush is also a great everyday palette and has a nice range between light and dark tones. Like the Huda Beauty palette, they're also highly pigmented and blend well. However, you won't find some of the pops of color that you do in this Rose Pastel Obsessions palette. It's missing things like the yellow and orchid tones. If you want to do soft pink kind of everyday looks, Blush Crush might be a better option. It's also about half the price at only $14. Last but not least, I just wanted to quickly hold this up against the Huda New Nude palette. I know a lot of people have this one and it has some similar tones. However, I wanted to show that this Rose Obsessions palette has a lot more of like the lilac or mauve tones, whereas the Huda New Nude is definitely more into the neutral and has some very different shades in general. The Huda New Nude palette is much larger and has quite a range of shades, so you can do more looks with it, but the Pastel Obsessions is fun, especially if you have holes that you want to fill in your eyeshadow collection. So that's it for the comparison. Now for a quick summary on the Pastel Obsessions palettes. So here you can see all the Pastel Obsessions palettes. You'll notice that all of them have a range of tones, including some neutral shades. Of all the shades in these palettes, the mattes were my favorite. I felt like they were really highly pigmented, they blended well, and they were really easy to use. As far as the glitters and shimmers went, a lot of them are cream formulas, which isn't my personal preference. I found that they were hard to work with, and generally you had to apply them with your finger. It was hard to pick up a lot of product at once, and I felt like I really had to stamp them onto my eye in order to make them show up. In the pan, the swirl shades looked really pretty. I liked how they had kind of a duochrome glitter to them. However, I didn't feel like that was reflected dramatically when I put them on my eye. At $29 a piece, I feel like they were a relatively good value if you're the kind of person who likes your glitters to be a little bit more on the chunky side and you think you'll use those shades. My favorite one is probably the mint one because I feel like it just has more unusual shades that are hard to find elsewhere. However, I also really enjoyed the pop of yellow in this rose palette because I also haven't seen that in a lot of the pink palettes that have come out recently. Overall, I think there's a wide range of looks you can create with these palettes, and especially if you like glittery shades, these could be a good value. If you are interested in one or more of these palettes, I would encourage you to consider this one comparison. This is the Milani Gilded Pastel palette, and it retails for around $20. This is a highly pigmented palette that has 15 different shades. One thing that I love about it is that it comes with pastels in a range of colors. If you're considering buying this Huda palette for something like the teal shade or a minty green shade, you can probably find it for less in this Gilded Pastel palette. It will also allow you to create some similar looks to this rose palette, for example, because it has a yellow tone here, as well as that rosy tone up top. You'll also see some similarities to this lilac palette with those pastel purple shades and the peachy tan as well. It would cost about $87 to buy these 3 Huda Beauty pastel palettes, while you could do many similar looks with a single palette for only $20. I hope you found this video helpful. I'd love to hear what kind of looks you like to wear every day. Do you wear things that are more colorful or more neutral? Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.